G'day, hi, and welcome. Power B chord. I know I should have this thing plugged in. Okay, I probably already did this video, but because I got a really horrible memory, I'm going to do it again in case I didn't. But then again, I might have. And it's raining outside and I can't do anything outside anyway. So. And now it's starting to rain. So you probably, if you're hearing noise on the roof, I apologize. But that's Mother Nature. She needs to apologize, not me. So this is going to be aimed more towards beginner and intermediate guitar players, I guess. Should you start with a Floyd Rose for your first guitar? Goodbye, whatever you want. But here's what you need to know. And I should probably pull up my other guitar. I was supposed to have it sitting there for aesthetic purposes. Didn't work out. Here's what I'll say about it. I wouldn't recommend for a newbie guitar player. Oh my God, that's really raining. Well, I said it was going to rain today. Now, well, hang on a second here, because what I'm going to do is I just want to, just so you can see it, when you see it in visual, things tend to make a little bit more sense. So I'll bring out my ever so lovely SD3 here. Fixed bridge, right? Hardtail. Do this so I don't knock anything over. Tight. Here's the thing about starting out with a Floyd. Now I've had several guitars, lots of fixed bridges. I usually always end up defaulting back to the fixed bridge. And here's why. When I was younger and I first started playing with electrics back when I was 13, many moons ago, I'm 45 now, I wanted, some sort of a whammy bar. But at the time, I only knew of, like, the cool guitars were Gibson, Fender, and that's it, right? Everything else is just, nothing else exists on the planet but Gibson and Fender. And that's typical 1970s, 1980s mentality. The 90s was I'd say mid 1980s to the and on there's a guitar for everybody. You know what I mean? Like there's just no genre left unturned, and which is great. Don't get me wrong, I love it. But that standard of, well, if you get yourself a good Telecaster, a good Stratocaster, even if a Mustang. I've only met two people in my life that played a Fender Mustang. I always thought they were really ugly guitars. I mean, I guess like everything, beauty's by eye of the beholder. But I've played them before. I'd get a Telecaster. I like Telecasters. Love Telecasters. They're not great metal guitars though. Although there's, Super Tellies and Super Strats out there. The Super Strats started really becoming popular in the 80s. And what set them apart from the Fenders is the tremolos were different. Now, if you were just learning, the first thing, my first guitar was a fixed bridge. And learning, all I had to concentrate on was tuning the guitar. That was it. And once I tuned the guitar, I'd play it, and it'd be forever and a day before to go out of tune, even if I played it, unless I played it really, really hard. But it was pretty reliable. I didn't have to worry about that as a new player. Whereas my second guitar had a non-locking tremolo on it. It was I gave the guitar to my sister a few years back. It was a TCM Explorer. Really cool. Blue and black burst, whatever. And that guitar, I loved having the whammy bar on it, but the first thing I learned about it was, as soon as you went like that, it was out of tune. That was it. And you'd have to retune it. It was quick to tune because there was no locking system. You just tune it back up. So I was like, okay, those things were same as the Stratocasters. That's about all you could get away with, or else it'd go out of tune. And even the higher end Fender Strats it still had these crappy, non-locking system bridges, so your guitar was out of tune all the time, and that would be a real pain in the butt for newbies, because usually your typical newbie takes like 2 days to tune a freaking guitar, right? Even with a tuner, tuners are great, obviously, to learn with, but when you're way out, sometimes it takes forever for that tuner to pick up and you're sitting there, going around, and you don't know how to do it, right? You can't just get it somewhere, and like the tuner doesn't know what the heck's, it's listening to a string that's like this. It doesn't know what to pick up, right? So what, is it a D? Is it an E? What is it, right? So, and then you think you're on the tune, but it's tuning the D string when you're tuning the E and whatever. And those little growing pains happen. Then after a while, you get, it's like you can tune a guitar. I tune basically open string all the time. All those octave things, I don't really do that much because I do it to check the intonation, but that's about it. But I want to hear that and that, so I remember in the 90s there was this thing called the Strat Plus. The best Stratocasters that Fender I think ever made was the Strat Plus. So they stopped making them. But those guitars had lock-in tuners on the backside and a roller bridge. And it stayed in tune a lot better, but it was nothing like the Floyd Rose. The Floyd Rose and the Shaler systems and then Ibanez had its own, which I think the best ones out of them is either going to be the Shaler or the Ibanez tremolos. Those ones are so sensitive. I love them. They're great. Even the lower end ones are really good. Floyd Rose, are like this one is pretty all over the map. It'll get the job done, but this is the cheaper one. It will get the job done though. It's good. But it's not phenomenal. But the thing is that there's a lot of work to these things. Okay, so if you're new at this, you now have to do a lot of research. So you can see how this, well, you probably can't see it from there and whatever, but you can probably see it from here. You can see how the bridge is sitting flush because I've got this Floyd and the spring tension set specifically to this gauge of strings, which just happen to be 9s. But even different 9 gauges will give you the bridge either sitting like this or you got a little more tension sitting sharp, and that messes you up sometimes with the buzzing and stuff like that. So there's more work to them. It takes longer to change a string. The good news is that you can break the string a million times and just roll it down and keep putting it in until they rot off the guitar and break somewhere else where the string gets too short. That's one nice thing about the Floyds. But then you got to lock it and unlock the nut every time you do it. So it's a lot of work for a newbie. I'm not saying don't get one. I'm just saying that's simple. The other thing is that if you do want to change to a heavier gauge string, yes, you will have to set up every guitar when you change strings, but you can get away with a lot easier on the fixed bridge than you can on the Floyd. So these are the things that you're going to have to consider because it might not be obvious until you get one, and it's a bit much. Now, for some guys, it's like, yeah, but the music I like to play requires a whammy bar. Let's say you're a big Joe Satriani or Joe Petrucci fan or something like that. These guys always use or Joe Satriani or Steve Vai, Randy Rhoads, Eddie Van Halen. These guys always use the whammy bars, right? So you can't play that music without the whammy bar. And if you use a non-locking system, good luck trying to keep it in tune, right? So if you are going to get a whammy, unless you're going with a classical type style rock guitar with a Lear system or whatever, or like the Strats, just understand that the Strats don't stay in tune with those. And I know there's going to be the guy out there, well, mine stays in tune just fine. Yeah, but they typically don't stay in tune. The Stratocasters, the whammy is just meant for like a light, like vibrato, like that's not meant for, or it's not meant for that raised pitch elevator, Dimebag Darrell or Joe Satriani stuff. It's not meant for those. These things are. But if you don't really require it, you'll also save a little bit of money on the guitar. The other thing you get is you get better tonal qualities out of a fixed bridge typically. So you get like nice, like this guitar is kind of dead sounding. It's not a bad sounding guitar. Mind you, you can't really compare these two materials wise. Mahogany, rosewood, really good pickups, good heavy anchored bridge. It's going to give you great sustain, right? This, okay, you got a floating bridge, so you lose a little bit of sustain there. Basswood body. The maple neck is not bad, but all that, and the maple fingerboard brightens it up a bit. But this is a cheap guitar. This is like intermediate guitar. It'd be good beginner guitar in the sense that the playability is, like like the action is amazing on it. But where you lose out is that you got to get used to this. They're not that bad, but you got to learn how to stretch the string before you set them up. You got to make sure that your tuners are kind of in a more neutral position. I guess I'm going to have to wrap this up. And before you lock down the nut, or else you're going to have to unlock the nut again, tune up, and then it's a process. So you do a lot of research if you're going to buy your first guitar is going to have that. But you're going to pay more for a guitar with a Floyd Rose or whatever locking system or knockoff than you're typically going to pay for a non. But you can get them for a beginner guitar. Just understand that there's going to be a lot more work to setting them up and stuff like that. So I'll leave it at that because I can go on forever and a day why you shouldn't. But it's just something to consider, So I'm not saying you shouldn't. Just keep in mind what you're going to be up against. All right, there you go.